Hello there, everybody. Haven't done one of these in a while, not this kind. This is an article that I found in my great-grandfather's stuff when he passed away. And it is an article from the Chicago Sunday Tribune dated May 25th, 1947. I don't know if you guys can see that out there. Hard to see with this camera. This camera's not the greatest, but that's what I got. Anyways, and this article is called Roosevelt's Secrets. Or I've heard his name pronounced Roosevelt, whichever you prefer. Anyways, it's really interesting because here we have the Tribune's platform for America. And guess what it is? Bring the soldiers home, balance the budget at $18 billion, create an American foreign policy, preserve the Monroe Doctrine, get European governments out of the Americas, and declare the war ended. Huh. Sounds pretty much like today, doesn't it? Not too different. Anyways, what I think I'll do here, though, is I'll just go ahead and share this article with you guys. And I'm going to probably title this video something like, Nothing's Changed, Obama versus Roosevelt, or whatever. So let me go ahead, and I'm just going to set my camera down here and go ahead and read this. This is called Roosevelt's Secrets. The detailed instructions given by President Roosevelt almost 2 years before his death to preserve the secrecy of many important papers dealing with his official conduct provide proof that he considered that there was a great deal to hide. Some of these papers he ordered should forever be held secret. Others were to be sealed for periods of from 10 to 50 years. Talk about transparency in government, right? Same old thing, nothing new. Buried in these papers are the mainsprings of a personal policy which radically changed the character of American government, led to tremendous alterations and dislocations in the nation's social and economic life, plunged America into the greatest war in history, and committed the United States to foreign entanglements shunned by every other president except Roosevelt's Democratic predecessor, Woodrow Wilson. Again, all this sounds like it could be today, right? You're reading the paper today. Until the contents of the Roosevelt papers are known, the American people will possess only fragmentary knowledge of the whys and wherefores of these events which have conditioned their lives and overshadowed the country's future. They and the United States were subjected to the motions of the capricious presidential will. It is within the province of the author of these decisions to tell the people from beyond the grave that what he did and what they endured are none of their business. For example, Roosevelt, in the memorandum governing disposition of his papers, specifically directed that letters between himself and the King of England should never be made public. It is within his power, within the power of the custodians of his papers to give binding effect to any such decree? The facts would deny it. Communications between the leaders of states cannot be clothed in any sanction of privacy. Presidents and kings do not exchange letters merely to inquire into the state of each other's health. What passes between them necessarily affects the people of their countries. Roosevelt cannot assume the prerogatives of a king lording it over his subjects. The office of president carries the responsibility at all times of governing in the name of all of the president's fellow citizens, which are his equals. The explanation of Roosevelt's war policy may well lie in this correspondence with George VI. It will be recalled that 3 months before the outbreak of war in Europe in 1939, the King and Queen made an unprecedented visit to the United States and were received both at the White House and at Roosevelt's Hyde Park estate. What passed between them has not been established. Of course, if you're into revisionist history, of course, there's many people who believe that, well, he was basically the slave of the English. Anyways, let me continue. There are reports that Roosevelt assured the monarch that Britain could rely upon the United States in the war, whose approach was then manifest. The suppressed papers would go far to show whether there was such an understanding. Roosevelt laid down a similar proviso of secrecy with reference to his correspondence with the Cardinal, and I can't barely read this guy's name because it got frayed. It's a Cardinal something Monafine, I think, of Chicago. It is difficult to discern the reason for this sensitivity. Possibly these letters would contribute to a more complete understanding of recent history. As Senator Brewster has emphasized, Roosevelt undertook to draw a distinction between personal files and non-personal and official files. It is unlikely that the determination of what was private and what was official can be left with propriety to such partisans as Roosevelt's political confidant, Judge Rosenman, and his secretary, Miss Grace Tully, whom he commissioned with the late Harry Hopkins to screen his papers. When Roosevelt created the Hyde Park Library as a memorial to himself and as the repository of his papers, he professed to regard himself as a historical figure whose character and official behavior would be of enduring interest to his countrymen. If he accepted the role, he must stand by its consequences. He is compelled to let everything about him become known. He cannot specify that he be seen always in a flattering light. He cannot load the scales so that only a favorable judgment is possible because the counterbalancing evidence has been ruled inadmissible by himself. Wow. Anyway, so you can see here, this is the same things going on today. Nothing's changed in our country. Men whose conduct is at all times frank and open do not regard the records of their official behavior as confessions, the introduction of which into evidence must be fought. Roosevelt himself has laid down the challenge to those who would undertake final judgment of his character and work. Long before the secret deals at Yalta and Tehran began to leak out, he declared in a speech before the Foreign Policy Association in New York, "After my return from Tehran, I stated officially that no secret commitments had been made. The issue then is between my veracity and the continuing assertions of those who have no responsibility in the foreign field. The issue is still between Roosevelt's account of what he did and those who take a different view of his stewardship. It can be resolved only by access to all of the evidence. Congress should assume control of all the extant documents, and after decision by an impartial commission of scholars, let the American people know the truth about the conduct of all of their business under the direction of this man who represented himself as their servant." I guess we'll be debating this with Obama, too, after he's gone out of office, because it's basically the same kind of situation here. You have a man who did a bunch of stuff without, letting anybody know what he was actually up to. I mean, we know that in Yalta that happened. We know that they basically caved into Stalin. It's just amazing. If you look through history, World War II caused so much trouble in this world. I mean, it gave us Israel for goodness sakes. So, I mean, and these things were all decided by just a few people. All people in power, a lot of people in our government, England, Soviet Union. So anyways, I just thought I'd share this with you. Kind of a cool thing. Kind of a weird little thing to read. Roosevelt's Secrets, Chicago Sunday Tribune from May 25th, 1947. So people were bitching back then even about these same issues, and I'm sure that, like I said, it's going to continue onward into the future with this Obama fellow that we have as our president. So not much difference between these two men at all. Take care. Have a good one.